This podcast may contain adult language, adult situations, spoilers, and some brief nudity, so parental guidance is suggested.
We have such sights to show you.
After about 5 minutes of this movie, you're gonna wish you had 10 beers.
Human sacrifice, dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria.
So, what would you little maniacs like to do first?
Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?
Oh, well. La-di-da, la-di-da, la-la, yeah.
Welcome back to the Cinema Recall Podcast. Hello again, everybody, and welcome back to the Cinema Recall Podcast. Of course, I am the Vern. Thank you for joining us. Now, I originally had planned to schedule our interview with writer Brian Abrams, who wrote a very cool book all about movie quotes called You Talking to Me, an iconic guide to movie quotes, but his publisher has asked if we postpone releasing that show until after his book is released, which happens on September 26th, and it's not quite that date right now, so I'm postponing releasing that show until next weekend. You can still hear it on our Patreon page, again, patreon.com/cinemarecallpod, but I've got to wait to release that episode until next Friday. But in its place, we're going to put content up here. I'm reposting our episode that we did with guest Ryan L. Terry, talking about both Valley of the Dolls and Beyond the Valley of the Dolls. Now, Ryan L. Terry is a great guest. He was on our Showgirls episode. I worked with him for his audio comedy series called Forza Crowd, which is a really great fun time, so definitely check that out. So yeah, it's just us talking about both features. We hope you enjoy it. I know there's going to be stuff happening on that episode that is no longer relevant, but it's still a fun time. I'm sure you'll enjoy it. And stay tuned to the end of the episode, because I want to give a special shout out to our amazing Patreon supporters. Anyways, folks, I love you all, and I will see you soon. If this is your first time listening to us, please subscribe to us on all your favorite podcast platforms, Good Pods and Podchaser, Apple Podcasts. Our website is cinemarecall.net. Anyways, folks, love you all. I'll talk to you soon. Laters. Bye. Hello everyone, the Vern here from Cinema Recall, here to tell you about Newsly. Newsly is an all-in-one audio app for iOS and Android phone. It picks up the most trending articles on the web and reads them to you in a natural human voice. For the first time ever, the entire web becomes listenable. Stop scrolling, start listening, go to newsly.me, use the promo code RECALL, and get 1 month free of their premium service. Check it out, and now, back to the show. Hello everybody, and welcome back to a brand new episode of the Cinema Recall Podcast. I am your host, the Vern, and on today's episode, we'll be discussing both the camp classics Valley of the Dolls from 1967, and then Beyond the Valley of the Dolls from 1970. And joining me today is Mr. Ryan L. Terry. Hello Ryan, how are you doing today, sir?
Hi Vern, I'm doing just great. Thank you so much for inviting me to be on the show to talk about these two films, one of which is really at the forefront of many of our minds because of Sharon Tate's appearance and character in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And we even had a couple of comments about it, for instance, the one who ended up doing Dirty Movies. And so it's fun to get to sit down and talk about not only Valley of the Dolls, but the follow-up / not follow-up of Beyond Valley of the Dolls.
Yes, two completely different flicks out there. Now, for longtime listeners of the podcast, you'll recognize Ryan as being the guest on our Silence of the Lambs episode, but since we changed podcast hosting apps, that episode is no longer on the network. It'll be re-shown up again in October for our 31 Days of Halloween posts. So this is technically your second appearance, but you're on the show before, so when I replay that episode, we go more into your writing career. Ryan is the owner of RLTerryRealView.com. He's also a professional figure skater, and he's a theme park critic, and we definitely go into more of that aspect on that episode. So definitely look out for our Silence of the Lambs episode. It'll be posting sometime in October, and I definitely highly recommend everyone go check that out. But let's get into Value of the Dolls. But if you don't mind, Ryan, I do need to take a quick little break and play some ads from some other podcast shows, okay?
Oh, go right ahead.
All right.
After these messages, we'll be right back.
Was A Quiet Place inspired by Signs, It Comes at Night, and War for the Planet of the Apes? Was Ready Player One influenced by Avatar, Wreck-It Ralph, and The Last Starfighter? Is The Hurricane Heist more influenced by Sharknado or Geostorm? These are the kinds of questions my guest co-hosts and I discuss on my podcast, Piecing It Together. Every week we look at a new movie and try to figure out what other movies inspired it. Whether it's the story, the character development, tone, or even use of music. Every movie was influenced by something that came before it, and we want to figure out what. Check out Piecing It Together on your favorite podcast app, or check us out on piecingpod.com. You can also follow us on social media at piecingpod. Piecing It Together is a part of the All Points West podcast network.
War continues to rage across the globe. Our valiant men and women have been winning battles as the war continues to march on. Hollywood continues to produce clone after clone of the films you used to enjoy. There have been some defectors, but most remakes continue to assault your sensibilities. Our small troupe of trained experts continue to expose these imposters while showing Hollywood a better way. Support the invasion of the remake by listening, reviewing, and subscribing. Your knowledge is power. We're all in this together. Spread the word.
Subscribe to Invasion of the Remake on all major podcast providers. New episodes dropping weekly.
At invasionoftheremake.wixsite.com/podcast.
Now, the motion picture that shows what America's all-time #1 bestseller first put into words.
Gotta get hold, gonna get.
I wasn't much of a man living with you, Neely, but that's over. I'm straightened out now.
With that little whore!
That little whore makes me feel 9 feet tall.
Dolls, the instant turn-on. For instant love. Instant excitement. Ultimate hell.
Neely O'Hara!
Starring Barbara Parkins as Anne. Good girl with $1 million face and all the bad breaks. She took the green pills.
Well, how do you think I feel sneaking out of your apartment at 4 o'clock in the morning?
Patty Duke as Neely, who was such a nice kid. And then someone put her name in lights and turned her into a lush. She took the red pills.
Sure, I take Dolls. I've got to get some sleep.
I've got to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning. It's sparkle, Neely, sparkle.
Neely, you know it's bad to take liquor with those pills.
They work faster.
Have you heard from Jennifer?
She wanted to know where she could get an abortion.
Sharon Tate as Jennifer. International sex symbol, victimized by everyone. She took the blue pills.
Go to hell with them. Let him droop.
Anne, honey, let's face it. All I know how to do is take off my clothes.
Susan Hayward as Helen Lawson, who had the talent to get to the top.
And I'll make it
A gut, fingernail, and claw fighter who went down swinging. She took the yellow pills.
Look, they drummed you right out of Hollywood. So you come crawling back to Broadway. Well, Broadway doesn't go for booze and dope. You get out of my way. I've got a guy waiting for me.
That's a switch from the fags you're usually stuck with.
At least I never had to marry one.
You take that back!
Get your hands off me!
The nation's most startling and hotly discussed bestseller, now on the screen with every shock and sensation intact.
You think I could sleep with you here in this house?
This wonderful old house? And you beside me in that marvelous old four-poster upstairs?
We're It's a marriage bed, Lion. You were thinking of marriage?
Miriam? I'm pregnant.
Oh, Helen, come on. Neely O'Hara can't hurt you.
You bet your ass she can, because she isn't going to get the chance.
Now, the all-time bestseller is the motion picture you wanted it to be. Valley of the Dolls.
All right, you just heard the trailer of the movie Valley of the Dolls, directed by Robert Benson. I think I'm saying this name right. I'm always bad trying to find names of. Yeah. Robert, I can let this out here. Yeah, I'm sorry, Mark Robson. And it stars Barbara Parkins, Patty Duke, and Sharon Tate, like Ryan mentioned before. And the story is about these three women who come to Los Angeles and find fame in certain ways, and also find ways to destroy themselves in certain ways. And I kind of want to get into your opinion of this movie. To me, I really thought that when I first watched this film, that these three characters, these three women character, went to LA together to find fame, and throughout the course of the film, they would find, things to destroy themselves. But they weren't actually all three friends. They kind of met up through the film, but they were not joined together, and I found that to be kind of a confusing thing. I think that's also the same way as it is in the book. The book was very popular back in the 60s, written by Jacqueline Suzanne. But let's kind of get your thoughts about the movie overall.
Yeah. This was my first viewing of the film. As I teach screenwriting at the University of Tampa, I do my very best to make sure that I watch a wide variety of movies and read a wide variety of screenplays, so I can be actively learning all throughout my teaching career as I'm teaching future writers. And this is one that was on the radar but had never been watched. I was intrigued. I was kind of prompted to watch it by the references and nods to in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And when you asked me if I wanted to talk about these two movies, it's like, well, at the time I hadn't seen either one, but they were two movies that I know I needed to watch. So I'm glad that you kind of pushed me over the edge to watch them, because I'm very glad I did. A little more so with the latter than with the former, because Valley of the Dolls, in my mind, it's well, I was watching it with my friend Leon in Germany. He and I watch movies together most Sundays. We will start the movie at the same time, and then we Skype chat. So it's like we're sitting in the same room. It's a great friendship he and I have, and so this is one that he had also been meaning to watch. And all through the movie, we just kept looking at each other, making comments like, what the fuck are we watching? It was just like, this is such a bad movie, but oddly enough, in a very good way, one may be able to say. I'd say this is the kind of movie that you want to get a little tipsy and watch. It's very much perhaps a party movie, one that you would get together with your friends, and maybe as you're playing board games or whatever and eating chips and dip and pizza and chicken wings, and you're just having a fun time, that this is the movie that you put on. You could easily turn it into a drinking game.
Oh, totally.
So every time somebody pops a doll, which you guys listeners you'll learn later on is a nickname or slang for pills. That was new for me, so if it's new for you, don't feel bad, because until I watched this movie, I had no idea that pills were referred to as dolls.
Yeah, it's like Dolphine or something like that. That's what is a downer drug. That's what dolls are named after. Dolphine as a sort of like downer drug. But in the movie, I thought only one of the characters in this, the Patty Duke character, is the only one that I see taking dolls. Maybe that one, or the other actress that she's trying to replace the Ethel Merman type of character.
Yep.
The Helen Lawson character.
Oh yeah, that was a great subplot, and it really helped to kind of provide a lot of context and more of an emotional connection with our main story. So I like that. I mean, what we have here are three, not completely separate, but like three. We have our A, B, and C stories are only intersect every now and again, but yet they all complement each other very well. I'd say it's kind of Cloud Atlas like.
Oh yeah.
And that they are connected, but yet they really are wholly their own stories, and they do provide they provide nice layers through which to experience the movie, because each of our girls, albeit their external goal, it's all the same. It's go ahead.
Well, let's kind of talk about the three characters, because this is where it gets confusing for me in terms of telling a story, and maybe you can help kind of describe this more to me. So we have the character of Ann Wells, played by Barbara Perkins. She's upset about her small town life. You know, she's getting kind of bored living in this small town, and she decides to go out to the city to get a job or become famous in some sort of way. She wants to be a writer. Then we have the character of Neely O'Hara, played by Patty Duke, and she wants to become a very famous singer. And the first scene we see her in, she was going to help replace this one other famous singer, but it didn't go well in the audition. And then we have Sharon Tate, character of Jennifer North. She's a woman that's just known only for her beauty. And she has these conversations with her mom all the time about she has to do these exercises, and then no one's going to take you seriously as an actress. You know, you're known just for your body. Make sure that all your exercises are just for your body. And then throughout the course of the movie, these three characters become famous, and then they delve into other bad things, but it happens really fast. Like the Patty Duke character of Neely O'Hara, she has that sort of audition. She's like backstage, and one of the other producers is telling her that she won't be this famous person right away unless she was asked to like bow out of a production, even though she really wanted it, and producers like saying, well, I can't let my other client, the Helen Lawson character, lose his part, so bow out gracefully. And then the next scene, she's doing this telethon sort of performance, and then she becomes really big after that. And I feel like her rise to fame and her downfall was like pretty fast. The Ann Wells character, she gets involved with this other man, and she becomes addicted to alcohol. Sharon Tate's character gets involved with this other singer, this really famous singer named Tony Scotti, played by Tony Pollard, and then he has a mental breakdown, and then when Patty Duke's character has a mental breakdown as well, she meets up with Tony Pollard. So there's all these different things going on all at once. When I'm watching this, like, I don't know how to construct this. It's a movie that's really difficult to describe to someone, and I'm having a hard time.
Yeah, it very much is. It is highly non-linear.
Yeah,
and it's more of a honestly, it's just really more of an experience. It's not a movie to watch honestly for the story. It's not one that I feel is kind of typifies the art of filmmaking. It's certainly a cult classic, and I can understand why, especially because it was seen as so very shocking when it was released in 1967. But you'll hear worse language and see more nudity on primetime TV these days.
I know, right?
So that was like, because I heard how risque the movie was, and that's what I was looking for but I watch it and I'm like, oh, this is Beyond Valley of the Dolls far more risque than Valley of the Dolls. But whenever you hear of risque movies, you hear like Valley of the Dolls is one that comes up. But I think this is a movie that it played around with film conventions of that day. We have a lot of abstract sequences. We have a lot of 60s shapes and colors. And I think playing with film as a medium is something that you can enjoy in this. I think the story, it's very kind of A Star is Born, show business will corrupt you. And, and then, pills, liquor and pills are going to kill you. And so we have a lot of perhaps some morality messages that are in there. Stay away from Hollywood if you want to keep, your life together. But I don't feel it ever all comes together. It's a lot of great ideas that are not cohesive, I suppose is a good way of putting it. Some good character studies individually, but ultimately I don't find the movie to be that memorable, other than it was a good bad movie, as I mentioned in my opening remarks, because some stuff happens way too fast and then other stuff takes so long to get through. There were many times I was looking at my watch, I'm like, this is the longest 2 hours that I've spent at a movie in a long time. But yet, like Rise to Fame, poof, we're just like overnight, we're famous. And then the pacing is a problem in this film. But we have three interesting characters that we can connect with one of them, because maybe we're not facing their particular struggle, but maybe in an analogous way, we're facing our own struggles and can identify with where they're coming from.
Well, I think my biggest issue with the movie is the fact that there are three characters, but there doesn't seem to be one central character, because the movie starts off with one character, the Barbara Purchase one, and then it tells you about these other characters, but it doesn't seem focused on one. And for a movie like this to work, I want to focus on one of the characters. You can definitely show what happens to other characters, but if you have three people being the main focal point of the storyline, I seem to be lost in who I should be rooting for.
That's a great point, Vern. I just, actually right now in my semester at the university, we're talking about central characters and their external goal, and with their internal need, providing the motivation. And I've explained to them to stay away from ensemble casts. Not that ensemble casts are bad. Star Wars: A New Hope is a great go-to example of how ensemble casts really well. But until you know how to work well with a singular central character, you can get lost in the ensemble cast, because you have difficulty focusing, and then you run the risk of not knowing who our lead is. You're dividing yourself too far. It's too thin. It's like not enough butter scraped over too much bread, as I think it was either Frodo or Bilbo said in one of the Lord of the Rings movies. And so that's the issue with ensemble cast. And so this feels very much like an amateurish mistake. And I think the movie would have been perhaps a bit stronger if we had a central, one of the girls as our lead, and then the other two could have been chief supporting, still very important, and they could have helped to emphasize different themes in the movie. They could drive the subplots, but at the end of the day, we have a central character with a well-defined external goal, motivated by the need to achieve or accept whatever it is. And maybe to your point, had we had one central character, that the narrative would have been stronger. But as it is, we have three, and then our focus keeps shifting throughout. I mean, for the entire movie, there's not one point in which you can say, this, of these three, quote, leading ladies, this is the one who is the most leading. Maybe you could say that it's kind of similar to some of the negative feedback, negative criticism of last year's The Favorite, even though The Favorite was my number one movie of last year. Because there are a lot of arguments. Is Emma Stone the lead, or is Olivia Colman the lead? In terms of award season, we know who is classified as lead and supporting. But that's one where you could make the argument either way. I think it's a little bit clearer in The Favorite that Olivia Colman's Queen Anne is our central character, but you could make a convincing case that Emma Stone's character may have been our central one. But this is that's I know that's the closest example that I can think of, at least in recent times.
No, and that's a definitely good point, bringing up The Favorite, because you actually do have two central characters that play off each other very well, and you're interested in both stories. They are part of the same plot line. And with Valley of the Dolls, I don't really see it as being that much. And unless you're Paul Thomas Anderson, it's difficult to do ensemble pieces and make them work, because you look at Boogie Nights and Magnolia, a lot of different characters in those, but they all feel important to the stories. And they each have their own backstory. And I feel like their backstories were better written than the ones in Valley of the Dolls. In Valley of the Dolls, all I got were just these three women. One is just known for her beauty. That's the Sharon Tate one. And we got Patty Duke's character, who wants to become very popular. But she seems to be, especially the Neely O'Hara character, for me, she seems to be just the same at the beginning as she does at the end. Like, her character doesn't have much change. At least I didn't think so.
No, there's so little change with her character, and to be honest, she doesn't do anything to make you like her. Like, if she, like, I think maybe she's supposed to be our central character. I mean, even though we agree there's so little, there's nothing to like about her, and she's not even somebody that you love to hate either. You're left in this middle where it's like, you're kind of annoying. I don't really like you. You really are a bitch all through the entire movie, except when you first meet her. When you first meet her, it's like, oh, I want this person to succeed. But then we learn very quickly, it's like, no, she's a mean and nasty person. And there's no redeeming qualities. Even some of the best villains out there have redeeming qualities, and that's why we love these villains so much. I don't find there's anything to like about her, and that's a big problem. Especially when they are when they're part of the central ensemble cast, that we don't really like her. I definitely liked our other two characters much more than her, and I don't think I was supposed to not like her. I think I was supposed to empathize with her, but I was even having trouble doing that because she was just so unlikable.
Yeah. That's a very good point. If you had to pick someone in this from our three main ladies to be the main lead, who would you want to be the main lead?
I think Anne would have made a much better lead. I think of all of our characters, she is the most relatable, because she kind of falls into her career because she's looking for a better career. She loves show business. She is pretty. Maybe she's a little talented, but not quite, at least for that day and age, not quite pretty enough or not quite talented enough to break onto the scene. So she works in the office. And how many of us have taken jobs where it's connected to what we want to do, but we can't quite get into what we want to do, so we're going to be around it. I've certainly, had my share of those types of experiences. And I think she is the most relatable for the audience. So the film could have been helped by her story being the A story, her story being the main action plot. Okay. And then we could have had the other two as our supporting.
Gotcha. Very good, very good. Well, as always on Cinema Recall, we like to discuss our most favorite moments, or at least the most memorable moments of this feature. Did you have a memorable moment that you want to discuss about this?
Vern, I really wish I did. Okay. I don't find anything about this movie particularly memorable, other than just the having watched it. There's no real moment that sticks out to me like this is the moment that truly defines the movie. I think maybe, okay, well, here we go. For the sake of argument, I will pick a scene that I really liked. I really liked the scene between Nellie and Lawson in the ladies' dressing room, in the ladies' lavatory, perhaps. I really like that scene.
Is that the scene where she pulls off the hair?
Yes.
Okay. It's weird, too, because Helen Lawson, that character, that was supposed to be played by Judy Garland. They did a whole bunch of screen tests with Judy Garland, and she was all ready to go and be a part of that feature. And due to Judy Garland's own addition to drugs and alcohol, her role had to be given away to Susan Hayward. And I think Lucy LaBelle was supposed to be cast in that role as well.
Oh, I would have loved to have seen Lucille Ball in that role. Yeah. Even probably more so than Judy Garland. I'm going to see Judy this afternoon, so okay. So it's funny you mentioned that, because it's like, oh, I'm going to go go see the kind of that era of that last chapter of her life.
Yeah.
But Lucille Ball,
yeah.
I think that would have worked extremely well. And because she passed away in the 80s, so she definitely would have been. Because she was doing the Lucy show at this time, I think.
Yeah.
So that would have been really good. Oh, I wonder why they didn't work out. What a fantastic casting choice that would have been. Because even the hair works. Because Heather Lawson has red curly hair. I can totally see Lucille Ball playing that role, and I feel that because of how charismatic she is as an actress. And still to this day, the queen of comedy with I'd say Carol Burnett's a very close second, but the queen of comedy that I think that would have worked well. Even actually, speaking of whom, even Carol Burnett I think would have been an excellent choice, which would have been at the height of her career. Her career's still going, but because this would have been during her sketch comedy show, so that I could see where this would have kind of worked very well. But those are, what great casting choices. We still wound up with a good performance, but I think the performances could have been enhanced by either Garland, Lucille Ball, or even Carol Burnett.
Oh, definitely. Now we talked about your scene about the. Neely O'Hara pulling the hair off, great scene, great little campy fight sequence. But the sequence that I'm going to talk about real fast is the sequence, and in the movie we found out that Sharon Tate's character Jennifer North has been forced to be making these pornographic films in Europe. Not really so much pornographic, but softcore, where they show a lot of skin and nudity. And then we find out through the course of the film that she has developed breast cancer. And so there's a moment when she is in a room and she decides to take an overdose of pills that when I'm watching the film, it was the only time in the movie where I felt kind of sympathy for any of these characters, because in Sharon Tate's character's case, her body is the only thing that gave her money and fame and everything. And when she loses that, she decides that, well, that's it. I have nothing. No one else will love me for anything else other than my body. Only thing that people care about is my body. And I felt really kind of sad. Well, shit, that's really disturbing and messed up, the fact that you want to take your own life because you feel like you have no more value in this world except for your physical appearance. And I feel like a lot of people, especially like actors and models, I feel they probably feel that same way, that once my looks are gone, that's it. I've got nothing else in this world, so I'm just going to end my life. And that scene was kind of important, I guess. I mean, even though everything else in this film was very bad and campy, but that was the only time in the film where I felt like general feelings for a character was during that scene where she takes the pills and she's lying on bed and she goes over her past relationships with other men and conversations with her mother, and she just decides to end it all.
Yeah, that is a very good point that you make, Vern. I feel that you are right, and that this is among the few, if only, the only scene in which you feel where it evokes true emotion, and this emotion being sadness and empathy for her character. It's hard to say that about any of the other scenes, especially when you might go from a really emotional, touching scene to that weird ass song that kept popping up through the movie. Whenever it was like, I don't even know the name of the song, but you know what I'm talking about. It's just randomly we get this like weird ass song that's just like I don't know, it's like a bad musical or something, and it's just like, okay, you're about to feel really sad. Oops, okay, let's start playing this really, wacky, a female vocalist who just, the song has nothing seemingly to do with the movie, and it would constantly take me out of it to the point that it was ridiculous.
It's funny you mentioned that song. You're talking about the theme song from Dionne Warwick. The gotta get off, gotta get. I'm gonna do a bad impression of the song, and I apologize. But funny thing is, I didn't realize this, but I actually knew about Valley of the Dolls back in 1999 when the movie Fight Club came out, and I never put the conditions together. But there's a sequence in Fight Club when Helen Bonham Carter's character. She just spent the first night over at the narrator's house, Edward Norton's character, and when she's leaving the home, she's singing the theme from Beyond the Valley of the Dolls. And so I never realized that until later on, after when I was like watching this movie and I'm hearing that theme song, I'm like, I know I've heard this before. Where have I heard this sequence before? And then I saw Fight Club on TV not too long after watching Valley of the Dolls, and that sequence came on, and her character is singing the theme song. I'm like, oh my gosh, this makes total sense now. So I didn't realize that subconsciously I knew about the feature Valley of the Dolls when I was watching Fight Club. I don't know what
No way. I probably need to rewatch Fight Club because I'm only I think I know what you're talking about, but I've only seen it I know a couple of times, and I'm intrigued to go back and rewatch it because I want to see that connection.
It's not like a big thing. She's kind of just singing the song underneath her breath, but she is singing the theme for Valley of the Dolls in one sequence. It's just a very kind of small moment there. It has nothing to do with the plot at all, but I find those connections to be kind of fascinating when a character mentions a song or says a lyric from a song that was in a movie. I have nothing else to say about Valley of the Dolls unless you do. I'm going to give my score of Valley of the Dolls out of 4 stars. I'm going to give it 2.
That's where I am. I'm at a 2. It's just not I think if you're a cinephile, then this is one that should be on your list. I don't think you got to rush out and watch it right now, but I do think you want to put it on the list if for no other reason, and that it is a cult classic, and that people at least make references to. I mean, we actually have a reference to Valley of the Dolls in the sitcom The Nanny. in which Fran Drescher's character is reading one of the Sheffield girls, Maggie. No, not Maggie. The youngest one. She's reading the story of the, she calls it Valley of the Barbie Dolls.
Okay.
And so, but just so we have a reference like that, and of course we have Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So I think to get an idea of kind of where Hollywood was or how it was perceived at this time in history. This is 1967. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood takes place in 69. So I think if you're gonna watch that, I think it's a good companion piece. And not that their narratives complement one another really, but it just provides you can understand more about what was going on, and you can understand why Sharon Tate, when she's at the box office for the movie, and when she mentions to the manager, the one who went and did dirty movies. I mean, if you hadn't seen Valley of the Dolls, you're not going to understand that reference. I understood it only because I knew enough of Valley of the Dolls to where I got it, even though I hadn't seen the movie. But I have more of an appreciation for it now. So it should be on a list. Just doesn't need to be. I mean, we got the holidays coming up, so watch your Halloween and later on Christmas movies, and then maybe after the year, then during January, which is a slow time typically at the cinema, except for those late release Oscar movies. Maybe put this on and invite some friends over. Don't watch it by yourself. Invite some friends over. Turn it into a drinking game. Have fun with it, and I think that would make it much more enjoyable.
Definitely. I mean, it even has a Criterion Edition release, and one of the special features in this, it compares Valley of the Dolls to Requiem for a Dream, which I find to be a very fascinating essay.
Ooh.
Because Requiem for a Dream is this very kind of like controversial movie, and they say that in a few years Requiem for a Dream won't be as controversial and it may be seen as kind of a campy movie. And I found that to be kind of fascinating because we mentioned this before, that Valley of the Dolls at the time of its release was very taboo and very controversial watch, and that was the same thing with Darren Aronofsky's Requiem for a Dream. And I'm not going into a conversation about, but if you ever do pick up the special edition, there's actually a lot of cool features on there. But there was like an essay, a visual essay on that disc that kind of described the comparisons between both movies, which I find to be very fascinating. Well, we're going to switch gears, like majorly switch gears, and talk about its sequel, Beyond the Valley of the Dolls, but I'm going to take a really small break. We're going to play another ad from another podcast, and then we'll be back to talk about Beyond the Valley of the Dolls.
We'll return after these messages.
In a world where podcasts already seem to address every imaginable subject, one man broke new ground with a seemingly random obsession about exploding helicopters in movies. He was a podcaster on the edge, a maverick broadcaster who played by his own rules. Now, he has a last chance to talk about the strange way helicopters explode in film. Exploding Helicopter, available on iTunes and Podomatic now. Think you know about chopper fireballs? Think again.
This podcast is a proud member of the Lamb Podcasting Network. Find the network at largeassmovieblogs.com.
Recently, 20th Century Fox had two very heavy ideas. First, make a film called Beyond the Valley of the Dolls. Second, get Russ Meyer to write, produce, and direct it. You'll meet three girls, young, beautiful, talented, a tight trio that was the heart and soul of a rock group. Life was sweet, man, but not enough. The whole world was out there just waiting, and the beat inside pushed them to where it's happening. Hollywood, USA. Yeah, it happened all right. They got hooked on a non-stop merry-go-round where the only ticket you need is success. Be a winner, man, or forget it. When they made that first party, it was like too late. The whole thing was moving, reaching out, and they dug it. Whites, yellows, and reds were more than just colors, man. They were it. The magic dream pills. The chicks were wild and groovy. The studs were cool and cruel. The eyes so warm, the smile so friendly. But watch the teeth. They bite deep. Faces, so many faces, calling, begging, help me, love me, save me. Don't listen. If you hear them, you've had it. Come on, open your mouth wider. Here, taste. Life, man, life. Like it? Hell no, tough. It's a one-way trip all the way down. One little girl turns her back on truth and love. She'll have to make it with pain and eyes that cry rivers. The second finds her heart in the arms of another chick. Don't look for evil in your brother's eye. The third bird finds her man. It's good, very good, but she almost blew it before she'll learn that simple truth. The boys are here, too. One so sure that love was enough. It isn't. You gotta fight for it, or it'll just get up and walk on out. Another cat's hungry. Bread and chicks. Make 'em pay. Love is free, but sex isn't. Don't look back. You won't like the view. And what about you, man? What's your thing? You talk weird. What do all those words mean? Who are you? Don't look at me, man. You're not real. It's all here. Love, rape, murder, dope, grass, abortion, suicide. Something for everybody. Now hold it, man. Don't close your mind. This is what living is all about. The people who make Beyond the Valley of the Dolls come alive are the largest introduction of fresh young talent ever presented in a major motion picture. Beyond the Valley of the Dolls is not a sequel. There's never been anything like it before. If you've been waiting for something new, waiting for a film to shake you into the freaked-out, mind-blowing scene of right now, then come and see it, man, and find out why it's called Beyond the Valley of the Dolls from 20th Century Fox.
Okay, we're back. Cinema Recall Podcast. You just heard a trailer for Beyond the Valley of the Dolls, and this is where things get really kind of insane during this podcast, and I don't like to post warnings, but I think I should. This following sequence will contain discussions about stuff of sexual nature, drug use, murders, and if you're sensitive at all, lots of sex, yes. So if you're sensitive at all, I just wanted to put that warning out there for you. So Beyond the Valley of the Dolls is a sequel to the movie that we just talked about, The Valley of the Dolls, and it was written by Roger Ebert. That's right, film critic Roger Ebert, directed by Russ Meyer. Before this movie, Russ Meyer has been known for doing a lot of other sexploitation flicks, including Faster Pussycat Kill Kill, Vixen. Roger Ebert, this is the first thing that he ever wrote, and it's a story about 3 rock musicians who come to Los Angeles to become famous, and then just like the characters in Valley of the Dolls, they get connected with drugs and sex, and this is your first time watching this movie this week, correct, Ryan?
Yes, it is. This is my first watch, and I was much like with the previous movie. I was also like, what am I watching?
Yes.
But there was something like I couldn't turn away from it, despite questioning why I was spending my time watching it, other than wanting to talk about it with you, of course. But it was like, why? Like, what is this? And I mean, it's a quote sequel, but at the very beginning of the movie, we are told this is not a sequel, and not so many words, but this is not a sequel to Valley of the Dolls, and yet it is. I don't know. It's like, I think maybe. I don't know why that's in there. It should have been. I mean, because it's taking place in Los Angeles. It's very similar storylines, and it's like, why did I still don't know, why did they have to make the point that this is not a follow-up? It's like a sequel / not sequel to Valley of the Dolls. Shares name, shares similar plots, but yet but this is not a sequel. It's like, what? That makes zero sense.
Well, here's the thing too, Ryan, because Valley of the Dolls made a lot of money for 20th Century Fox, so that a sequel was bound to happen. And I know they tried to contact Jacqueline Suzanne to do the script sequel to this, and she declined it. So they had the property, and they're like, well, we gotta make this movie. So they found Russ Meyer because his features made a lot of budget they made a lot of money on a short amount of budget. You know, he usually shoots his movies for about maybe $30,000, but then they grossed over like $100,000. So he's definitely making a budget on his features. So 20th Century Fox hires him. He in turn hires Roger Ebert, who at the time was the only critic to give Russ Meyer's movies a good review. So they fly out to Los Angeles and they put together this film. And for a major studio like 20th Century Fox to release a movie like this is just really strange. And if you think about this, since the whole merger with Disney, Beyond the Valley of the Dolls is technically a Disney movie. So the sexploitation flick about these, three beautiful women getting involved with like sex and drugs and all the other things right there.
Sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
Sex, drugs, and rock and roll is technically a Disney feature, and I find that to be very strange. You mentioned the beginning sequence when it has that, that title about this is not a sequel. During that sequence, when you see all the credits rolling and everything, you are seeing the ending of the movie, which is really kind of bizarre. I mean, you would never see that today. You would never see a movie that has credits roll where you see what happens at the actual end of it at the beginning. And I find that to be very kind of fascinating. And then we cut to the great sequence of it's the Kelly Affair doing their songs, and I'm actually a big fan of the Kelly Affair, and also what they became the Carrie Nations. I actually dig a lot of the songs in this movie very much. I like the characters more in this feature than I do in the original Valley of the Dolls. I think that all three band members are different. We actually do kind of have a lead role of Kelly McNamara, played by Dolly Reed. She's kind of our main focal point of the movie. There's other characters in this, but she always stays kind of our focal character, and that's why I think the movie is easier to follow with her in there. She's played by Dolly Reed. Actually, both Dolly Reed and Cynthia Myers, they were known before this movie being Playboy and Penthouse centerfolds in this. And this, I think, is their like feature film debuts, and they don't do all that bad in this movie.
No, not at all. As you mentioned, the movie is much more linear.
Yeah.
Structurally, it is more sound, and we do have a lead character with whom we can identify, as our lead, so we know which is our main action plot, followed by our characters driving the subplot, and we are reminded that she is the focus of this story. You remove her from the story, and the story doesn't work. Whereas in the Valley of the Dolls, you could remove one of those girls from the story, and it largely still works. Mm-hmm. So we know that she is pivotal to the plot of this story. Yet we do have a similar approach in that we do have an A, B, and C story, but it is very clear which one is our A story.
Yeah, there's definitely a more linear storyline. It just happens to be edited by a madman, because in this movie, there's one sequence when they are first talking about going to LA, and it shows a bunch of like random photos of Los Angeles, and them going back and forth with the words like LA, man, swimming pools, movie stars. Another guy comes in saying bad air, pollution, noisy people. And it just I'm like, what the hell's going on? And then it cuts to them driving in a van going to the city, and they're doing like a musical number, and I'm like, am I watching Josie and the Pussycats here? I mean, what's going on? I mean, it kind of feels
and it happens real fast, just like with Neely's rise to fame in Valley of the Dolls, and this one we have this rock group who is largely obscure, and then all of a sudden, boom! It's like where's the development? Where's our rising action? We've we've introduced everything, and then boom, it's like we've jumped several steps. We've gone way too far ahead, and that's something that shares very similarly, in which I want to see at least some struggle of getting to the top. I realize we're focusing more on the fall after you've achieved fame, but come on, give me even 10 minutes of some kind of development, because we don't even get that much.
Because when the movie begins, the band, the Kelly Fair, are playing at like this high school auditorium, and then all of a sudden they decide to go to L.A. Now I know the Kelly McNamara, she is going to L.A. to visit her aunt, Roxanne, played by Erica Gavin. Cool story here. That actress, Erica Gavin, is still around, and she liked my she's on Instagram and on Twitter, and she has liked my tweets about Beyond the Valley of the Dolls. So.
Oh, wow, that was so cool.
So I'm definitely going to share this episode, but I found that to be just very cool. So Erica Gavin, she plays her aunt, and she knows about this party hosted by Ronnie Z-Man Barzell, played by John Lazar, and so they get a chance to play a party with Strawberry Alarm Clock, and so that kind of catapults their fame. So they there's no really struggle there because they knew someone in the industry, and I feel like that's kind of the way it happens with a lot of people. It's just who you know, and she happens to know this big record producer, and I know that Ronnie is supposed to be based on Ronnie Spector. Phil Spector. Sorry, Phil Spector. That's who Ronnie Barzell is supposed to be based on, is Phil Spector. And so they get involved. So after their big party with the Strawberry Alarm Clock, then they're started to be on talk show circuits. The person who plays their manager, I want to say, I forgot his name now. Oh gosh, I'm bad at this. I totally forgot what his name is now, but there's an actor who played Harris. Yeah, sorry. The actor's name is David Garan. He plays their manager, Harris. He seems to have a little bit of resentment because he really does like Kelly's character, or Kelly the character, and I don't know why they're not in a relationship. I guess in the beginning of the movie they are, but then once they move to LA, he starts getting involved with this porn star named Ashley St. Ives. Great porn star name, by the way.
Yes.
Played by Edie Williams, who actually dated Russ Myers at the time of this movie. Yeah. And then he starts becoming depressed, and there's a moment when he even tries to off himself after they get popular. The drummer of this film, the actress' name is Marcia McBroom. She gets involved with this lawyer, and then she has kind of fallen out too with this other boxer. I'm so sorry, folks. This movie I'm trying my best to explain all different things that happen, but it's best just to kind of to go into it blind, because there's just so many things kind of going on. All you need to know about Beyond the Valley of the Dolls is that it's a movie about a rock band who comes to LA, and then a bunch of strange things happen to them. Now, for me, I have seen this movie before, and my story about how I got introduced to this movie is that when I was a young kid, around the age of 12 or 13 years old, I actually one day found my dad's, porno stash. I'm going to say right now, I found his porno stash. Looking through VHS movies that we had in the house, I found this, other box that was just kind of hiding. And I'm like, oh, I don't know what this is. But I have a couple of boxes, and I open one up, and I see it's like all stacked up Playboy magazines. I'm like, oh. And then I open up another box, and I see a whole bunch of movies in there. And there's a Playboy video that had a bunch of big-breasted women, and Russ Meyer was the host of that video. I'm like, and they're talking about the movies he made. I'm like, huh. So I went to the library because, we didn't have much internet access back in 1996. So I had to go to the library, look up Russ Myers, and I saw the other features that he did, and I discovered that he made this movie called Beyond the Valley of the Dolls that was written by Roger Ebert. And I'm like, I've seen episodes of Siskel and Ebert. Why would he write this movie? And so I had to see this movie. And I think I found a copy of it at a video store, and I don't know how I was able to rent it, but I was able to get a copy of it, brought it home, and I was expecting to see like just all and out, sets and nudity. I thought there's going to be like close to hardcore pornography because it's NC-17. I'm like, ooh, that's going to be like really titillating. So I had to wait till my parents were asleep, and I popped the movie on, and I was actually becoming kind of engaged with the story because it is sexy in a way, and it's kind of like a confusing story. There's music going on, and so that's kind of my first experience of it. And then I watched it back again when I was probably in my late 20s, and I was able to find like an actual good copy with its widescreen presentation, because on VHS they only have like the pan scan. So that's kind of like my first elements of watching that film for the first time.
Wow, what a great story! Much more interesting than my just watching it on Amazon Prime. So,
but I mean, but you kind of go through movies like different phases of your life. Like when I was watching the movie the first time, I'd be like, oh, I just want to see some tits and ass, and there really isn't that much. I mean, yes, there's nudity in there, but it's not like it's not like all the time. In fact, I'm kind of confused why this movie still has an NC-17 rating. In fact, I know when the movie first came out, it was given an S rating by the MPAA, and so Russ Myers wanted to add just more things to it. But if you watch the movie today, it seems better to have an R rating than an NC-17 rating. Would you agree or disagree with that?
Oh, most definitely, because with the NC-17 rating, you're going to, I think, kind of not alienate's not the right word, but you're certainly going to there are going to be a lot of people who are not going to come and see the movie because of it being an NC-17 rating, more so than being the R rating. Mm-hmm. I think you run the risk of just being a bit too niche or narrow with your target audience, and it's not going to be as it runs the risk of not being nearly as commercial as it could be, and you may not see the box office return that you need in order to double your budget, because first of all you got to make it back, and then you have to double it in order to make it any real kind of minimal profit. So I think that is, and I think that's why we just don't see NC-17 anymore. I mean, maybe there are NC-17 movies out there, and I'm just not thinking of them. But R is just much more popular, and it's how you're gonna get more asses in the seats. Yeah. So that's what you're going for. You'll get more asses in the seats with the rated R movie than you are with NC-17, because you might even have some theaters which won't play an NC-17 movie because of the risk of those who are under 17 getting into the movie. So you might even mitigate the number of screens that you have access to as opposed to R, and in which case there's nothing, or I should say very little, that an NC-17 movie could offer the story that you can't, have in an R movie. So that's my thought.
Yeah, the only movies that I've seen that were NC-17 is, of course, Showgirls, then Lust, Caution from Ain Lee, then we have the movie Shame. What the hell is that guy's name? He was the director of 12 Years a Slave. Steve McQueen's Shame.
Yes.
That was NC-17 with Carey Mulligan and the other actor that I can totally blank my name on right now. gosh, what the hell is that guy's name? It's gonna bother the hell out of me. I'm actually tell this. Michael Fassbender. But that was a movie that was NC-17 that felt like it deserved the NC-17 rating. And I don't, being the fact that Beyond the Valley of the Dolls is definitely a cult feature. I mean, even this feature was rated R. I don't think it's, if released today, it probably would still not find the audience. It definitely would not be released by a major studio.
No.
If made today. So this was just kind of like one of those like lightning in a bottle situation where a big major studio took a chance on this very broady sexploitation flick. And I think that is what makes it stand out. I like the fact that it is NC-17 because it makes it more kind of underground, and I like that. Kind of like John Waters movies from that era, like Pink Flamingos and Multiple Maniacs, like that type of genre, where it should not really be meant for everybody, because this is a movie I cannot honestly say that I will recommend to everyone I know. There's a certain group of my friends who I can totally recommend this to, and they will have just a fun blast with this. But another group of friends, I'm going to have to be very cautious and be like, yeah, this movie's probably not going to be for you, because you're probably not going to get this joke, because this movie is supposed to be a spoof and a satire of Valley of the Dolls. It's supposed to be kind of a spoof and satire of the whole entertainment industry and how these women really kind of like capitalize on that. I mean, you have them going out with like different partners. In fact, we'll get into my favorite sequences, but one of them concerned the drummer of the band. She's dating this lawyer, and they have these sequences where they're in love, and then she's at a party, and she meets this boxer, who is definitely a fill-in for Muhammad Ali, and they start having an affair. And I just love the part when she is caught having an affair with Muhammad Ali's character by her lawyer boyfriend, and she just goes, "You said you were going to study. You said you were going to study," and it plays that dramatic music like it's the guy's fault that he showed up.
Yeah.
So it's just, I don't know. It's sequences like that. It's the sequence of the Kelly, the Dolly Reed's character with this older man named Porter doing pot, and her giving him a hand job, I guess. It's just it's really strange. The plot kind of goes everywhere, but it still stays kind of intact until you get to the very last sequence. And I don't want to spoil anything at all with that, but you know what I'm talking about, the whole sequence when they're at Z-Man's party.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
And they start doing the acid, and you're hearing, the Sorcerer's Apprentice playing in the background. And without giving spoilers, someone gets beheaded, and you're hearing the 20th Century Fox fanfare music being played at it. There's a guy dressed like there's someone dressed as like this Roman emperor, someone dressed as a Nazi. It's just really.
It is bizarre. It is an acid trip.
Yes.
I mean, for the audience as much as it is for the characters that are in the scene.
Yeah. And then after that, what I found to be the most strangest thing, besides all the crazy shit that we've seen throughout this whole feature, and there's like a lot of crazy stuff, even when they're at parties, just the first party, and it's cutting to all these different characters saying things, like these random sequences that have nothing to do with moving the plot forward. I think you see one character dressed like Christopher Lloyd, and Dame Edna is at this party, and they just, you know what I'm talking about, the first party sequence?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Even stranger than that is the very last sequence when you hear the narrator talking about all of the characters.
Oh, yeah, it is. It's as if this was based on a true story, and then we then and I guess maybe one can make the argument, well, perhaps it is, because these, these are perhaps slightly exaggerated, but these are real scenarios that some people faced. I mean, they probably face them today, but I think certainly they were faced more during this time.
Mm-hmm.
But you get this, like, based on a true story where you hear like what happened to them and where they went, and it's just like, how does this fit in with the pacing and the tone of the film? This is just way out of left field. And I mean, as you mentioned, it was edited by Madman. I think this is another indicator of that. May quite possibly be the case. Perhaps he was on acid when he was editing this movie. Or she, I can't remember. I don't remember the editor's name. It was just like, I was like, what? This is so weird. But I mean, I guess it was interesting to hear like what happened to him, but it totally took me out of the movie, especially how we go from acid trip and beheadings to, but where are they now? So what?
So going back to the party at Z-Man's place, because I'm not going to give any spoilers, one of them, the characters in that, goes completely insane and starts to attack people. I'm not going to say who does what. We kind of saw that sequence in the opening credits when the movie first starts. But that sequence kind of harkens back to Valley of the Dolls in a way, because of the whole Sharon Tate and the Manson murders in a way.
Yes.
Which I find to be, I don't know, this movie came out, I think 1970, and I mean, just only like a year or so after the death of Sharon Tate. And you have a sequence kind of like that, sort of similar vibe.
Less than a year. That was, because we're reminded of it in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. It's August, was it 15th or August 19th? It's the August 1969. And so this movie gets released in April 1970 at the end of April. So you were still shooting this movie at that time, because that's August. The release is April. So you're probably either finishing up or still in the middle of principal photography. And so that's a great analogy that you make there. And it's so very close, because of when principal photography may have been, that could have directly influenced this scene, because they were happening at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very true. Guys, well, as always, we like to discuss some of our favorite moments of this movie. I don't know if you have any, but I know I do. Even though it's random and chaotic, I kind of liked the first party sequence of this movie. I kind of laugh at the whole suggestion scene with Kelly McNamara's and the old guy in her room. I can't really go into too much detail. I do like even the last scene, even though it's just kind of bizarre. I think the whole movie as a whole is just one of those experiences that you just kind of have to see for yourself. If I had to pick like one moment of the movie that I actually kind of like, it's when you have Edie Williams' character, Ashley St. Ives, seducing the manager, Harris Allsworth, played by David Guerin, and they're in a car, and they're having sex, and she talks about all these cars that she wants to have sex in, and she screams the words Bentley over and over again, but then it just cuts to different shots of a Bentley car.
It's my first time in a Rolls.
Oh, nothing like a Rolls, Vera. There's nothing like a Rolls. Nothing like a Rolls. Not even a Bentley. Not even a Bentley. Bentley. It's like a Rolls. A Rolls. A Rolls.
And I was like, well, that's kind of different and bizarre edited choice, but Russ Meyer has always done that with his other features. Like, he never shoots set scenes in any conventional way. He'll always just cut to random images of things that don't really have nothing to do with the plot of that. So just the whole choice of editing, the way that was done, I found that to be kind of fascinating because it's different than from the norm. Because there is set scenes in this movie, but it's nothing really super like erotic in a traditional sense there, like most people would consider set scenes to be. There's always like close up of bodies like in between like bed frames or something. It's just there's something like just kind of off by it. And the fact that it's all kind of cut together really fast, it's hard to really kind of get engaged with it. So I found it to be kind of fascinating.
Yeah, my favorite scene is the scene in which our band manager meets his demise. And I won't go into details as to how or why, because this is a movie that I think that you should go in mostly blind. But it's my favorite scene for a few reasons, and not because it means anything to me really cinematically, but it was my favorite scene because, one, I'm like, how the hell did he get where he was? It's like who lets you into the building, and it's like how do you get there? And then I love the how it echoes. It's like a Black Mirror, perhaps, and how it echoes the scene at the beginning of the movie in which he's spinning the color wheel as the band is playing, because that's the same song that is playing during this scene, and how we really do feel for Harris. We can empathize with him greatly because we can identify with how he feels maligned. Perhaps even betrayed, and now he's a nobody, and he has to hear his song being played on national television, in which he's just totally disconnected from. And I think it's one of the more emotionally charged scenes, but I think how it mirrors that opening scene, is quite pretty. In a dark way.
Yeah. No, definitely good point there. And I do remember this sequence too. And it's funny too, after like Harris does hurt himself, then it's funny too how him and Kelly become somewhat connected through that. Mm-hmm. And then here's the weird thing too, like there is a sequence when Harris's character gets involved with one of the other band members of the show. And here's what I found to be kind of an odd thing, and maybe I missed something, but in the morning, she wakes up and claims that he raped her, and I thought they were both having consensual sex with each other, and then it turns out it wasn't that way at all, but he was the kind of depressed one, and she was on him for comfort. I'm still kind of confused myself as I'm trying to describe the sequence to our listeners, but in the movie, Harris gets involved with one of the bass players. She is feeling sorry for him because Dolly Reed's character is involved with this other person named Lance Rock, who is this kind of good-looking guy. I don't know exactly what he does, but she's involved with him, and Harris becomes depressed and tries to consult with Cynthia Meyer's character, and I just had sex, and she blames him for that, and then she gets involved with Kelly's aunt, who I said was played by Erica Gavin. They have a moment together, and then that happens at Z-Man's party, and then just bad shit happens over there. And I really so bad want to tell you what happens, but I just want people to kind of discover this movie for themselves. So that's why I don't describe plot details, even though I feel like I should, because I feel like I'm confusing the hell out of people when talking about this movie, But I think we should.
I like to say, what a tangled web we weave when first we practice to deceive. However, nobody is like going out of the way to deceive anybody in this movie. It is just way it is out there and open for everybody to see, and it is just a endless parade of twisted relationships.
Gosh, very much so. So if you had to rate Beyond the Valley of the Dolls, what would you give it?
If we go off our same scale that we established with Valley of the Dolls earlier in the show on a 4-star scale, then I would give this one 3 stars.
I'm about the same way too, but I'm going to give it 3.5 stars. It's just it's a nice tale of campy pleasure that I enjoy. I would probably put this up with like Showgirls, of being just that type of like bad sexploitation flick that you just gotta show people. Like I would definitely have a double feature of Showgirls and Beyond the Valley of the Dolls. It was just like a fun night of drinks and good friends, and I think you'd probably make more of a drinking game to this movie than Valley of the Dolls.
I can see that. I think it would definitely be much more fun and would keep your attention a little bit more, because the other one, you really do not have to sit there glued to your TV or computer screen to watch it. You can it's not, you can more passively watch the original Valley of the Dolls more so than this one. This one you really do need to pay attention a bit more.
Nice. One thing that I forgot to mention when we talked about Valley of the Dolls, and I'll mention this for Beyond the Valley of the Dolls, but Valley of the Dolls was the first introduction to actor Richard Dreyfuss.
Oh, no way!
He has a small sequence in Valley of the Dolls where he's delivering a script to Neely's character.
Oh, cool! No, I did not pick up on that.
And then Beyond the Valley of the Dolls was the first appearance by Pam Grier. She has a small walk-on scene that it's kind of this blatant miss at moments right there, but she's at the party sequence. And since that movie is cut by a madman, it's going to be, you have to go through that feature frame by frame to find her in there, okay? But we're connecting things to like other actors. We mentioned like Quentin Tarantino using Sharon Tate for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and then we also know that Tarantino used Pam Grier for Jackie Brown. So I found that to be, all those connections to be very kind of fascinating. So we actually have connections with Pam Grier to Tarantino, and then to Sharon Tate, back to Tarantino's features. Yeah, but I would still give Beyond the Valley of the Dolls 3.5 stars. It's a movie that I know I can understand completely why people would hate this movie. And in no fault, they would be at no fault at all with their opinions about it. But the movie is just so insanely shot and filmed, and the fact that it was written by Roger Ebert. So Roger Ebert can give bad reviews to movies that I like. He gave a bad review to Josie and the Pussycats, which I hate him for because I think that movie is awesome. But the fact that he wrote this feature makes me respect him a little bit. You know, the fact that he can actually do this strange sexploitation flick. The fact that it was released by a major studio. I think that's how it has a lot of its cult status. Or like I said before, this could be a Disney feature. So if Disney ever did re-release this movie, which I don't know why they would, it would be...
They're having problems just kind of accepting the fact that Jojo Rabbit is part of their cinematic library. I hardly think they're ever going to go out of their way to re-release a box set of Valley and Beyond Valley of the Dolls because I think they're now realizing exactly what they bought and are reconciling how they're going to differentiate these movies from their main image. So that's going to be very interesting. Maybe we'll see a new kind of distribution label that they will kind of covertly put out there to get their money. But they're certainly not going to release this under 20th Century Fox, and definitely not under the Disney or even Touchstone. I don't know if they still use Touchstone or not, but they're going to have to come up with another distribution label to get because they need to get them re-released because that's the only way they're going to make more money. So they have to come up with a way to do that.
Well, they have put these out on Criterion, and the Criterion version of Beyond the Valley of the Dolls is really cool. It's got commentary from the cast members. They're still around.
Nice.
That's cool. And they have a commentary from Roger Ebert on the film, and has a lot of special features talking to the surviving cast members. It even has some documentaries about Russ Meyer's career. Very cool stuff. I definitely recommend picking up the Criterion edition of Beyond the Valley of the Dolls. And I can imagine this film being played at midnight shows and everything. And if it stays as being a midnight movie, I'm happy with that, because at least it's being shown to people that do want to check it out. And that is all I have to say about Beyond the Valley of the Dolls and Valley of the Dolls. Any other closing thoughts you want to bring out there?
No, other than I agree that this would make for a great midnight movie, shadow cast.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think the shadow cast would be nearly as popular as the Rocky Horror shadow cast, but this is a fine candidate for midnight showings with a shadow cast at some independently ran, art house theater. Probably runs the, wherever you live, your local Rocky Horror troupe. This is one that I think could very well lend itself to that type of experience. And we could say just like Dr. Frankenfurter says with the line where you say this movie sucks with that audience participation when Dr. Frankenfurter chimes in. So I think that's a great point. And if you run your local Rocky Horror troupe and you're listening to the show, consider checking out Beyond Valley of the Dolls, because I think you might have yourself a new way to take your add another opportunity to enchant the community with your penchant for performing art and campy movies.
I love it. Well, Ryan, thank you so much. Before you leave, please plug anything you want to plug and just tell people where they can find you online.
Sure. You can find me hanging out on Twitter at rlterry1. You can also follow my blog at rlterryrealview.com. That's real with 2 E's. With the Halloween coming up, you're going to see me sharing a lot of horror content. I'm part of the All the Horror collaboration, and so you'll hear me on a few different shows and a lot of other podcasters that are going to be highlighting 31 different horror films. You're also going to hear from some authors and some other bloggers as well. So make sure to follow #AllTheHorror, or it's the tag is AllTheHorror18, and enjoy all the Halloween and horror content that's coming out. It's a lot of fun. But again, follow me at rlterry1 on Twitter, and I'll connect you with a lot of other podcasters and bloggers and other personalities who can really enhance your film Twitter experience.
Very nice, very nice. And we're definitely going to be sharing some of those posts through Cinema Recall's Twitter page, which is always at cinema_recall. We do have an Instagram and Facebook account. Just type in Cinema Recall Podcast. Coming up on the shows, that's right, we are premiering our 31 Days of Halloween, where each day of the week I will be recording a horror-themed episode, horror, sci-fi, mystery, suspense, but it'll be like a Halloween-themed episode. I'll be posting a quick little introduction to those episodes very soon, so definitely look for that. Cinema Recall Podcast, we are available on Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. Email us any suggestions through our email, cinemarecall@gmail.com. I am the Vern. You can find me on Twitter at Video Vanguard, video as which sounds, and then Van, G-A-U-R-D. But again, big thanks to my guest, Ryan L. Terry. Definitely recommend checking out his written post. And if I was in your area, I would definitely check out your screenwriting school, because I'm trying to write up my first short screenplay. So I would definitely want to ask you about some tips later on. All right?
Sure, I'm always happy to share my knowledge of the science and art of screenwriting, and I get paid to have fun. That's the way I see my classes, because it's just as enjoyable for me as it is for my students, because I love watching future writers develop. And I learn along the way. For instance, just real quick before I go, for the longest time I would tell my students, show don't tell, show don't tell, show don't tell. And if you're a screenwriting student, you've heard those terms before. But I'm reading a wonderful book that has really enhanced my experience in being able to and my approach to screenwriting, by Linda Calgill. Okay. And it's called The Art of Plotting, and she emphasizes it's not show don't tell, it's dramatize don't tell. So I'll just leave you listeners, I'll leave you with that. Graduate from show don't tell to dramatize don't tell, because I learned that in the chapter I read this week, and it actually changed my lecture that I delivered on Wednesday, because I thought of that concept in a whole new light. Dramatize don't tell, not show don't tell.
That is a great sentence to leave the show off on. Appreciate that very much. We'll be back here, folks. Thanks again for listening, and have a great day.
Alright, so that was our episode on Valley of the Dolls and Beyond the Valley of the Dolls. I hope you check out the other stuff that Ryan Altieri has done. He's a great guest. I need to have him back on the show again. This is the part of the show where I give special shout-outs and thank you to our amazing Patreon supporters. Again, patreon.com/CinemaRicoPod. This is where you'll get access to early episodes and bonus shows and a whole bunch of fun stuff. So right now, no special order, sorry, clear my throat. I want to give a thank you to Jason Soto of Rabbit Hole Podcast. I want to thank Jeanette Miller Mittenham at AKA Jeanette on Twitter. I want to thank Matt and Ashley from Mashley at the Movies. I gotta thank Jen McQuaid from Shocked and Applaud. I gotta thank Harvey Andrus, who is our former guitar player for Your Ex-Girlfriend, but he's one of our big Patreon supporters, and I love you dearly, Harvey. You gotta come on the show, alright? You're a $10 Patreon member. You can talk about whatever you want. Alright, and then I gotta give a shout and thank you to Donnie Roberts of formerly of Cage's Kiss, who now writes the Deep Sea Anthologies, as well as Linda Castro from Bedknobs and Broomflits, also formerly of Cage's Kiss. And here's the coolest thing. These cats, Donnie and Linda, sent to me, yours truly, a Funko Pop figurine from the movie Mandy. And I'm extremely thankful. If we don't know what Mandy is, it's got Nicolas Cage and Andrea Riseborough. Look it up. It's freaking amazing. But they sent to me a Cheddar Goblin Funko Pop, and I'm extremely grateful that they did that. Just really just beyond what I was ever expecting. I gotta send them out a gift soon, so thank you very much, and thank you to all of our amazing Patreon supporters. If you want to be as amazing as these people are, please subscribe to us, patreon.com/CinemaRicoPod. I love you all very much. I'm going to go right now, and I will talk to you very soon. We'll be back next week with our release of our episode on, I think it's like September 28th, interviewing Brian Abrams, who wrote the book, and then we're planning a whole series of new horror filmed episodes with Ashley I and some guests there. Anyway, folks, I dabbled on long enough. Enjoy your weekend. Ladies, love you. Bye.